Let's get this going again. Sweet. It's sad Sarah cannot be here with us, but shout out to Sarah, who is pretty much the main reason why we have, or the main reason that brought Platiche to us. I had myself the luck to meet Michael in person at FMX this year, where we basically were invited by the same person, by Dominic, who's also in the I saw him before in the attendee list, and also yesterday briefly. Yeah, I think he's still around at the moment. Yeah. And then we also, Michael and I, we just very briefly met like in person, having a beer and a burger earlier this year, early or end of May also approximately. So I did have that privilege that Mike mentioned before, that I was able to have a beer with Michael, not yet with Sultan, but I hope that's going to happen at some point also.
I hope so too.
Yeah. And I mean, so where shall we start, right? So there were a couple of questions open that we didn't get to yet. So let me see if maybe we can bring them in and discuss some of those aspects also. So there was another question also before by Pablo, which I'm not perfectly sure I understood it, so maybe Pablo can rephrase it. So was it difficult to manage people through the WFH aspect of the last couple of years, especially juniors who sometimes might be shy and don't want to stand out? So I don't know the acronym WFH.
I wonder if he's talking about the COVID time.
Maybe, but so maybe you add this, because I mean it's probably the same for you, Sultan. You're also with managing people, managing teams, but let's see if there's a follow-up on that aspect or on that point. So there's something Bella wrote, so I like it. Let's get controversial for a second. Out of all the software fanboys out there, the Blender evangelists, the Houdini cultists, I love it, the Nuke fundamentalists, the After Effects lifers, the Da Vinci zealots, which ones drive you the most insane? You don't have to name names, but you totally can. We won't stop you.
Wow. Wow. I don't know, Zoltan, do you want to jump in? Because you left off. Did you say Unreal? Do we have Unreal in that?
I don't think that there was a. Maybe there is going to be. Like I said, that's the next generation of iteration in the software.
There is yeah. I have to be honest. I mean, for me, like I work in a pipeline structure, right? So it's kind of like you're kind of working with a set kind of tool set. All that software that was mentioned is great. I find Blender fascinating. Like I find that fascinating. I think it's weirdly set up. I feel the same way about Unreal. I've had to use that in a job and stuff, and it's painful for all the reasons that Platiche laid out and stuff. And if I had a room full of Zoltans, it would probably be a whole lot less painful, but I didn't. But yeah, like I love it. Like when people are passionate, like, look, it's like Mac versus PCs and stuff like that, or Canon versus Nikon versus Sony. It's like people like to plant their flag and they defend it at all costs and stuff. And, it can be fun. In my experience, I don't run into that kind of thing if people come in and they just want to make sure they get paid. They don't necessarily care, like, there's not that level of like software fanboyish, at least not that I've experienced.
I think it's the same.
There are people that advocate. There are people. Sorry, Zoltan. There are people that advocate a lot of times for things like, "Hey, we want to do this in Unreal," and for me, again, it's like I have to look at it like, all right, are we set up in our pipeline to do that? Now, at Pixo, we had a very robust Unreal virtual production setup, so it was easier there. We had the same thing. We had our own build of Unreal, but yeah, generally it doesn't creep in quite as much in my experience.
Yeah, like just adding to it, like I have mostly experience with Unreal, but I also did some 3ds Max and also tried Blender itself. But I think there are always just a means to an end. So like we want to achieve something, and if we do it in one program or another, it doesn't really matter as long as it works and we have the desired end result. And of course, everyone can be like fanboy of some kind of software. Like I used Unreal for the past like 8 years. Of course, like maybe I'm more favorite to it, but like if something comes up that is more if it is better, and then like it can replace it, or if it is something that we want, like AI, what you mentioned, like we don't know how is it going to end up in the future. So if it is going to be integrated into the softwares, is it going to replace it, is it going to upgrade it? All these things are like so interconnected, we cannot really know what it's going to be.
One thing that would be fun actually about Unreal. So the first time my first experience with Unreal was back when with Unreal Tournament, when that first came out, because they released the Unreal editor to be able to make maps for Unreal Tournament. And back then it was set, so basically you could, it was all very 3D Studio Max oriented and stuff like that, but you could make a map, bring it into the editor and publish it, and people would come play deathmatch on it. And to sort of see how that software went from that to how we use it today it is amazing. It is literally like, you know, that took vision, like somebody, you know, like really had a vision of a roadmap and stuff like that. But yeah, it's come quite a long way.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. So I got a quick, let's say, comment on the other question from before, and I would assume this also goes to both of you. So I'm going to repeat the question basically. Was it difficult to manage people through the work from home, WFH aspect of the last couple of years, especially juniors who sometimes might be shy and don't want to stand out?
Yeah. Zoltan, do you want to go first?
You can go first, and then I can just go after.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So I remember when that happened, I was like, it shocked everybody. Like I was at Pixelmondo when it shut down in March 2020. I was in the middle of supervising a show for HBO called Perry Mason, first season of Perry Mason. And they came out and said, like, everybody's gonna leave, you gotta go home. And we were like, what is that? We didn't know what was happening, right? I just remember sitting on this desk in our where our compers sit, going, I don't know, I don't know if the world is ending. Like nobody knows. Like it became very strange. We weren't as prepared as other places were. Like we had a rocky build to like get everything set up. Nowadays, it's not hard at all. I miss being around people a lot. Like we had a screening room, a theater, and all that stuff. And you know, I loved just going in and interfacing with the team, like just walking into the comp pit or where the lighters sit or whatever, and just talking to people, like, you know, going through ideas, solving problems. As far as like juniors and stuff, no, because the thing is that I really try to foster an environment where everybody feels like they're on equal footing, you know. So and generally, and this kind of goes to like when you hire people, like their personalities and stuff. Like, you know, there's always like very senior level people that I lean on really heavily, but there are also people that they're compassionate, they're generous with their knowledge and stuff. And so, you know, we look at it like we have to rely on the juniors as much as we have to rely on the seniors. You know, you treat them with the same level of respect as you would treat a coordinator versus your visual effects producer, right? Because we're all contributing to the final product. So I don't find that, you know, inexperienced artists, like I have a very open door policy, and I don't micromanage people. Like I'm there when I'm needed, you know, and you know, a part of my job as a supervisor is, you know, to also sort of be a therapist in a way, you know, to help people, like help them. And I learned that because, you know, there's a time when I was strictly an artist, and I had a supervisor, and I was working on his show. And I got really stuck on an effect. I just couldn't get it. And the way he came and he treated me and he talked to me and he talked me through it, it built me up so much that I was able to get past what I was stuck on. And I was like, that if I ever become a supervisor, that's the kind of supervisor I want to be. And so for me, I'm trying to pay that forward. And I'm still friends with that guy. Like, we actually, on that Perry Mason show I just mentioned, he was supervising the show from Digital Domain when I was at Pixo, supervising our part of it. And I tell him that story all the time. He gets really embarrassed, but it's that kind of thing. It's like, because you never know, like, that junior is going to grow up, they can run a studio one day. And, how you treat them could be the thing that inspires them to do that. So I feel like, whenever there's, somebody who is like, much less experienced, I do keep an eye on them just to make sure they feel supported, so.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that like your attitude is given, right? There's a lot of horror stories, and there's reasons why questions like that are coming up, but that's also something that is really tricky in defining the culture of those things, right?
Yeah.
So Zoltan, how are you managing or experience those things?
Yeah, like when the conflict happened, I was still working at DigiPictures, and it was also like a big strange that we were also sent back home, and then we were like, okay, what the hell we should do, and like what's going to happen? And it was a total confusion because everybody is on site usually. And then it took some time to figure out what happened, like what we should do. So we should take home the computers, or we have remote access, like more technical stuff, and figure out how to coordinate it. And then we figured out what is the best way to do the daily stand-ups, to coordinate the work, how we should do it. It was a more easier setup because we were using Unreal. So in this case, we could use Perforce and version control and get into the work itself. But in general, it was a totally new experience. And like lately, like the whole world changed. Like the work from home is kind of normalized in the industry, and also in Platish, most of the employees are working from home because we are so spread out all over the world with different time zones and everything. So it would be impossible to sit in a one big office with all the tenants inside, and maybe it wouldn't be even possible. So I like it, but also I miss the part where we can sit together sometimes with the creatives and then just get some new ideas, because in some ways, just being together with people give you the creative spark, because when you're alone at home and you don't have just the casual conversation, the idea is not always coming just so naturally or fluid.
Yeah, without the stinky chemicals that stick to your clothes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
That's true.
So there's another quick question or comment from Bela. He says, on a slightly less trollish note, working with the new generation of artists, which old school technique do you think still everyone still should learn, like the eat your vegetables of VFX?
Yeah, I can tell. That's a great question. I have an answer for that. Pay attention to the world around you. I love lighting. It's probably one of the things that probably one of my most favorite parts of the process, right? Is I love throwing my headphones on and lighting shots. Like a lot of supervisors, they get to be supervisors and they're like, great, I don't have to touch a shot ever again. And I'm not that guy. Like, I love sitting down doing shot work, right? Because again, this is about the art and the craft to me. Like, if I was just telling people what to do, then this just becomes a job, and I'm not really looking for a job. I have this need to have, this creative outlet and stuff. So, when it comes to like whatever craft that you're pursuing, I am always paying attention to the world around me. Like, if you're a lighter, like, I take pictures, like I sometimes I'm just staring off. Like right now, like, you know, I moved my office into my garage and the door's open and sunlight's out there. And I'll look at something and sort of see like how light's hitting it. And I can look at, and I can go like, this is how I'd build a shader for that. You know, this is how I light it. This is where I would put lights. Animation, I'm looking at how people move and things like that, like little nuances. Developing an eye is really critical. It is probably the most critical skill you could possibly have, like to be able to look at something and know if it looks right or if it looks wrong. You know, so, you know, when you're talking about like what a core skill set is, that is really a core. And that is probably something that, I don't know, you might go to a school and they never mention that, you know, but to me, that I constantly do that to this day. It's like I'm just always looking and trying to improve, because again, it's about the journey, right? You know, it's about like how satisfying, and I think we all have done this in our lives, you know, and it doesn't have to be with like our work. It could be like sports or something else, where how satisfying is it to all of a sudden be able to do something that you couldn't do yesterday, right? Or be a little bit better at something than you were yesterday. You know, there's a satisfaction that goes to that, you know, and it's, you know, it's a very human experience, you know. So really, like when you're talking about old school, it's just have a good eye, you know. And also, like, I doodle all the time. Like, I don't draw on a sketch pad. I draw all over like mail, like unopened mail. Like every piece of mail that gets thrown away in my house has like drawings all over it. And I'm just kind of constantly sort of doing that, just, you know, just again, to get to be busy and stuff, but also to have that, you know, to scratch that itch, you know, because, you know, I'm sitting here in front of a computer all day and, you know, working in Houdini or whatever. That's cool, but it's also not at the same time. And so I need that, you know, that kind of artistic, escape as well. So those are the things. It's just like pay attention to the world around you. Like everything you need to be good at what you do is out there already. It's already exists. It's existed forever, you know. So just pay attention and like learn how to transfer that into like your work, you know. So that would be my comment on that question.
Zoltan, what would you say? What are your all-time favorite things that you picked up along the way, and you think they are universally true, and you should always keep them or keep those lessons?
I think what Michael said is like perfectly summarized everything. Like I'm a developer myself, but I tried myself out also as an artist. I started my career in the cinematics as a technical artist. So learning the lighting, the cameras, and the shaders, it started with looking at references and looking at real life. It was very slow because I didn't have prior education in that one. But after looking at through another eye, in a more professional eye, it really helped me to look things on a different way. And I think that's what we have to take away. What Michael said, just be open-minded, and also nothing is new under the sun. So we can say it like, just go out and try to recreate something.
Yeah. If I'd add something is, or maybe to make it more kind of refined it based on my observations, it's yes, absolutely train the eye, but it's not just kind of for me. I usually try to go a little bit further because we do a lot of architectural construction stuff, right? So it's kind of also the why does it look like that? Mm-hmm. And that can be broken down usually in a couple of things. So first of all, what are the materials and how are they processed? And then how are the, let's say, the different parts connected? And what's this, basically the scientific process behind those? Is the stuff glued? Is it welded? Is it bent into place? And if you have, let's say, it's really, really, really subtle details. If you look at, for example, the corner of a building, then it's kind of usually just the very edge, the last, let's say, inch or 2 to 3 centimeters, is usually slightly darker than anything else on the, or let's say the plaster of the wall or the concrete or something like that. That has to do with the wind turbulence, of how fast that the wind places, let's say, particles at the corner, and on the flat surface, the turbulence is less. And so you see this, that just on the corners, it's slightly darker. And first of all, you need to see that, but then also it's kind of to analyze what could be the process that leads to this effect. And then you start, if you're like the physicality of things, the physical processes, the construction, the construction order and things like that. All of those things are usually, or for me, the part of the training the eye.
Yeah. You know, you had made an interesting comment, Matthias, I think on our ride to the airport about the models that you guys were making about like the roofs and stuff, like how, like, you know, is there a door there and this, you know, like details like that. What you described and kind of like, you know, what I was saying, like there's parity there. Like we're talking about like very similar things where it's just like paying attention. This, like, if you're an environment artist, and I know, like, you know, a big part of ICE is like talking about environments, and, you know, the way that Matthias and I met at FMX was, you know, through City Engine. I do a lot of environment building, right? So cities, you know, laying out streets and stuff like that. There's an art to that you would only really develop that eye by paying attention. Because if you're sitting there and you have a blank screen in front of you and you go like, what's the first thing I put down? You know, like, all right, I'm going to put a house down. All right, well, where's the next house go? And then you start to just put stuff down. It's like, well, where's the street go now? And then how do things connect? And you can put a lot of effort into something, look back and go like, well, that doesn't look real at all. That's not how a city block looks or a residential area looks. And you develop that by going out and paying attention, you know, like looking at where you live or where you drive every day, or even going online and looking at aerial photography. So it's like, it's very similar to that idea. It's like the who, what, and why. The why is very important when you're doing environments, you know, because again, you're trying to build something that makes sense. And is functional. So
yeah. I mean, what I remember, there was a couple of years ago, just shortly before the pandemic, I sat at a conference in a presentation by Platij, and there was somebody was talking about how things are 3D scanned, let's say leather belts and fabric and things like that. Yeah. And that stuff is basically translated into the digital realm for animation of clothing and so on. So that's one way of obviously not necessarily needing to be able to see the details, because you're directly taking them and translating them into the model, for example, by just translating the physical information. But being aware of this process of why are we doing it like this? What are the limitations potentially of myself as an artist? When I'm texturing a model, why doesn't it not look the same as if I 3D scan it, right? Yeah. So that stuff is really, really important, which actually brings me to the next question. So since both visual effects, let's say computer graphics, and 3D printing start with digital assets, do you see opportunities where one feeds into the other, like using printed prototypes for physical reference or bringing scanned physical objects into the digital pipeline?
Absolutely. On-set reference. Like to be able to bring, you know, like one of the things that we are, I'm not with Pixelmondo anymore, so I don't know why I keep saying we. One of the things that Pixelmondo was most well known for was all the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And so there would be an on-set like reference there for like gathering lighting and reference and stuff like that. And 3D printing could play a huge role. Like for me, I always think about that, like, you know, if you had a character or something like that you know that you were gonna add after the fact, to be able to have a representation of that on set. For things like eyeline, if you were able to do it like a 1-to-1, you know, full scale. But yeah, there's absolutely like a crossover. You know, it's just a lot of that comes down to, do you have access to a printer? You know, what's the cost of that? You know, that all always plays into it. But is there, you know, is there an application for that? Absolutely, there is. Yeah. Now, outside of that, like, I mean, you know, it becomes like a case by case basis. Like, it's, you know, the rules never apply to the same project, so it's always different every time. But yeah, it's a good question too.
For regarding the 3D scanning, I think like it's getting more into the industry, like, because we have to somehow connect the physical world into the digital world, and it's always easier to go to the real life things. So using megascanned assets or scanning anything, or using Gaussian splatting, like, it's getting into the whole industry. Like, even though we can create out of the blue from scratch really amazing digital stuff, but if we are comparing two digital assets, if one of them was created by for artists and one of them is scanned, you can still see like which one was real and which wasn't. Like, you have to put a huge amount of effort just to recreate the amount of detail because of the natural disformity or the uniqueness or the patterns and all these things. So like, we are using it also in our own digital content.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Nice. So there's no more questions which came in. Whew. No. Let me give you guys one or maybe two more questions. So I had noted down basically this question. So for people trying to get into the industry. Now, Michael, you maybe being more on the, let's say, on the technical side or on the artistic side of things, and you, Sultan, being more on the, let's say, software developer side, coming into the creative industry. From both of your perspectives and takes on, or based on your experiences, what would be the best advice for young talent that comes into the industry in general, and because of the situation of jobs lost and all of that stuff, and people wanting to do something differently potentially, also especially from coming from other industries into the industry that you're working in?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the best advice that I would have, and again, this is completely my opinion, but you know, is to be realistic about where you are in your skill set. That's the first thing. Is that, you know, you have to be comfortable, like knowing that, like, hey, if you're just breaking in, you know, you may have just come out of college, or you may have been working on some stuff. You didn't go to school for it. You've just been doing some stuff at home, and it looks amazing. And you know, and so you have sort of an idea of your ability level, but you come in and find out, well, that's cool, but you were working on that for like 8 months. I would need you to be able to build that in 4 days. You know, and there's a lot of that, and I do run into those kind of things where it's just like, you know, you have to establish expectations and be like, hey, this is cool, you know, but you're not going to walk in and necessarily, you know, be given a hero asset or whatever. You're going to be worked into the process, you know, to basically, because at the end of the day, what you want is you want that person to succeed, right? You know, it isn't about like giving them a trial by fire that's basically just set up to like strip them of their self-confidence and lose out on somebody who could potentially be a fantastic teammate, right? So like, you know, if you're new, it's really just coming in with very realistic expectations. You know, it's like, you know, you're not gonna, you know, you can walk in and ask for an exorbitant rate or whatever. You know, there's, and I'm bringing these up because this happens, you know, it has happened and stuff. So, you know, part of it is that it's like really kind of understanding, you know, like things from both perspectives, like your own, but also the person that you're applying for a job. Like, you know, what investment do you think that they're willing to make in you? Like, because at that point you're like an unproven, you know, hopefully asset to them, right? So, you know, that's a big part, and just a good attitude. Like I always go back to that. Like, just have a really good attitude. If things don't work out, listen to any kind of hopefully feedback that's positive and encouraging. Not everybody's going to be that way, you know. And I certainly say in the visual effects side of things is that, you know, we are artists for hire. You know, we do work, we fall in love with it, but somebody's going to take it and they're going to tear it apart, and they're going to tell you all the shit that's wrong with it. Mm-hmm. You know, and you have to understand that, and you have to learn how to deal with that. You know, that is the thing, is that your job is just really to make those revisions and this, that, and the thing, and you have to like figure out how you manage that emotionally. You know, so there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's all worth it. You know, it is. It's a very, you know, it's a really exciting industry to be a part of, and I understand it's hard to break in right now. You know, because there's you know, senior people that are out of work or whatever, but you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, just if that is your passion, then pursue it. You know, you just never know. Like, things can change in an instant. You know, like and that's really the interesting nature of this industry. You know, good and bad. I mean, they can go from good to bad in an instant as well. But you know, that so you know, advice is like, you know, have confidence, have a great attitude. You know, and you know. If you're hired, just sponge everything up. You know, you know, just listen and learn.
All right. I think what Michael said, it's perfect. It's perfect summarization. But regarding the technical side of it, I think to getting into the industry, it's really easy in a way that's like there are countless courses or learning materials online. So even if you don't have a higher education in that certain topic, you can pick up the knowledge and then you can create amazing stuff. And also, like, there are tools that are free, so Blender, Unreal, whatever software we are looking into. So you just have to find the thing that you're passionate about and then create something. It can be cinematics, automotive, games, whatever you are into, and start putting up stuff, and let's see what happens, and reach out to clients. Maybe you are going to end up with just lighting scenes or assembling environments or just modeling or rigging or anything. But after that, you're going to slowly get into the industry. Maybe it's going to be just a freelance job for 1 month, 2 months, a week, but eventually it's going to be something that can grow into a career itself. And as Michael said, like, we are in because of the passion. Like, we are there because we love the whole industry of creating magic, creating experiences and stories, and I think that's why many people want to get into, because they want to live out the creative aspect of their life. And if they can combine it with their living and also like their passion, that I think that's the best thing what we can do. And another thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, it's like what you said is so correct. It's like learning how to play the long game. You know, like, don't look at things like, oh, this is like for the next 3 months or whatever. Like, you really want to look at it like, where do you want to be in 10 years? You know, where you want to be is you want to be like a presenter. You know, and it's not to say it's going to take you 10 years to do that, but you want to be here giving advice to people. Like picture yourself in that context, not like what's going to happen 3 months from now or 6 weeks from now, stuff like that. You want to learn how to just play the long game. You know, this is what I want to do with my life, and make it happen. You know, and understand that it's going to be ebbs and flows and stuff, but you know, if you've made that commitment and you're like, this is what I want to do, the ball is really in your court.
Yeah, and I think there's the hard part in this nowadays, that everyone wants to have instant results. So I want to be successful tomorrow. I want to create a movie tomorrow with a big production, but it doesn't work like that. So you have to be just consistent and show up every day, put out your work, and then try your best. Sorry, Matthias.
But I mean, when we talked about LinkedIn before, right? When you read through LinkedIn, you assume that that's reality, that that's necessary, that you are 20 years old and you have 15 years of experience and you have a PhD in computer graphics, right? That's the expectation. So it's not, right? It's definitely not. And I think what I also find important is people always say like passion is key, right? Do something, it has to be passion. But the thing is, what other people may be passionate about is not necessarily a driving, let's say, force or energy for you. So it's really important to find your passion, right? Not a passion, your passion. Because otherwise you think, okay, I see that person is passionate about that thing, and I see, yeah, that's good, and you start to follow in this direction, but it's not your true like core of your true passion. And this may lead to a discovery also that to do one thing that you started to do may not actually be the direction that you want to go to anymore, or is not the right direction, right? And it's always another like analogy which I've picked up over the years is originally I'm an architect, I told this also another person because her kid is thinking about becoming an architect, and she said, yeah, the kid is not yet sure if it wants to go in this direction. And I said, ask the kid is the following question: do you want to become an architect, or do you want to work as an architect for an unlimited amount of time? Two completely different things. Like, do you want to be a 3D artist? Do you want to be a comp artist? Do you want to be a whatever it is? Do you want to be that? That's kind of this magical thing, the idea that is very vague, and you think there's magic to go there and reach that. But that's a completely different thing than, do you love doing the thing that is actually the real life consequence of consistently following the path in that direction of this magical goal? Because the thing is, if you don't like the path with all of the consequences, then reaching this goal may actually say, yeah, but the work sucks. I hate the process. I like the illusion of being there. I like it sounds cool to be a doctor, but the shifts are horrible, right? 18-hour shifts and no sleep and bad payment and so on, right? I think that's also really, really important.
Sure. Well, cool.
Right.
So I have dailies coming up in 7 minutes, so I actually have to jump and go do my day job. But again, thank you guys, everybody who tuned in, and Matthias, I think this is great. Zoltan, is cool to meet you. I would say, anybody on here, feel free to reach out. Like, you can email me if you have questions or whatever. I'm happy to answer them the best of my ability. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. But yeah, this is cool. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you so much also, and I think, yeah, this was really, really cool. So there's a little bit more program that I'm going to do, but I let you guys go. Thank you so much. If there's more questions coming in, obviously I'll send them forward to you and then send them back to the person where the question came from originally. Thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome.
I'll
Thank you very
just
much,
continue
Matthias.
with the rest. Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.